and welcome to another edition of Debatable here on GodIsTheGeek.com. My name is Colm Ahern, and this week we're talking about the biggest thing to happen to video games in the past 7 days. And ladies and gentlemen, that is of course the return of the Big Dong. Paranormal Activity didn't introduce the idea of found footage to the cinema goer, but it has certainly spawned numerous movies filmed using the same technique. On a budget of 15 grand, the first Paranormal Activity pulled in almost 200 million at the box office. A success that no one could have predicted, and Nguyen, well, his story isn't that dissimilar. Flappy Bird was originally released on the 24th of May 2013, and absolutely nobody cared. It wasn't on any top 10 lists, no outlet was giving the Vietnamese dev coverage until early this year when the game became a worldwide hit. Facebook feeds were full of people saying, "Ugh, I can't get any higher than 6, but it's so addictive." Head to Twitter and you might see some snark relating to what appeared to be borrowed Nintendo assets. Either way, everyone was playing with their yellow flapper. That was until Nguyen took to Twitter on the 8th of February to address his public and tell them the game would be removed from the App Store in 22 hours. He stuck to his word, and like that, the game was gone. Not unlike a scene from The Purge, the populace was sent into disarray and rioting on the streets became the norm. Well, people got cross on Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, maybe, I don't know. Nguyen removed the game because he couldn't take any more of the abuse, the copious amounts of death threats and generally horrible shitty things that the world and the game's community were saying to him, as the game's community are wont to do. Sometimes, and not all of you, I know that. But he's back on the scene with Swing Copters, and it's rubbish. Now, Flappy Bird was poor, there's no questioning that. It was difficult, unforgiving, yet the people couldn't get enough. Swing Copters takes the simplistic tap input from Flappy Bird, and rather than scroll horizontally, you go upwards. And it's a lot worse than Flappy Bird. Uncontrollable cat melodeon. You might have seen people on Twitter celebrate getting a 1 score on the game, mainly because it controls that poorly. Something I could never understand was how Flappy Bird got so successful. I mean, there were plenty of endless runners out there already that were far better in almost every conceivable way, like Rayman Jungle Run, Cannonball, Jetpack Joyride. Yet for some reason, people just latched onto that bird. So much so that within a couple of days of Flappy Bird's breakout success, there were tons of clones. On February the 27th, an article on The Guardian listed 95 games that went live in the App Store within a 24-hour period. All of them Flappy Bird clones. And I have a list here which I'm going to read out to you of just some of those games. Tappy Bieber, Flying Ducky, Flappy Penguin Revenge, Easy Flappy Penguin, Flappy the City Flyer, Premium, Flying Rainbow Cat, Wonder Ghost, Tappy Nguyen, Flappy Monsters, Splashy Bird Ghost, Floppy Spongy, Tappy Duck, The Journey of a Flying Bird, Real Bird, Tap to Fly, Flying Unicorn, Fly Like a Bird, Floating Felix, Annoying Flappy Fly in the Search for Disgusting Bathroom Treats. That was the game? Cape Man, Fly Wrecked, Flying Pig, Tiny Rush Adventure, Scrappy Bird, Splashy Girl, Ducky, The Bird, Eagle Run, Lickitin, The Adventure of Hoppy Cat, Flying Bird Deluxe, Plane Fly, and Block Fly. And that, my friends, is nowhere near all of the Flappy Bird clones. Taking ideas from other creators and using them in your own project is nothing new, and also nothing inherently bad. Gears of War is heralded for its pop cover system, yet history shows us that 2003 title Kill Switch first introduced the now common mechanic in third-person shooters. Before Rock Band, there was Guitar Freaks. Before Metal Gear, there was arcade game 005. But in the case of the App Store, developers have very little shame. Threes was released to critical acclaim earlier this year, and rightfully so. It's a terrific title that can have you engaged for ages. It took developer Servo 14 months to complete their game, and in less than 1 month after they had released it, the iOS marketplace was crowded with imitators such as 1024 and 2048. In 2013, Vlambeer released Ridiculous Fishing, a refined mobile version of their PC kind of prototype effort, Radical Fishing. However, in 2011, a clone of Radical Fishing called Ninja Fishing appeared on the iOS App Store. As this piece from Polygon chronicling the affair shows, they're almost identical. Being inspired by another person's work is one thing. However, stealing it outright and not giving credit is a whole other kettle of fish, if you'll pardon the pun. Unlike Threes and Ridiculous Fishing, Swing Copters is a bad game. Probably one of this year's worst. But that didn't deter other creative types from cloning Nguyen's latest. Within 24 fucking hours, on both the Google Play and the App Store, we had Wing Copters, Piggy Copters, Swingy Copters, Swinging Copters, Swing Copter, Easy Swing Copters, and all other manner of games that will most certainly confuse the masses that aren't dialed into which one is the follow-up to the game they loved so much, Flappy Bird. It's complete and utter bullshit that Google and Apple allow this to happen. And look, I don't like either Flappy Bird or Swing Copters, but that doesn't mean I think it's right that so many other people jump straight on Nguyen's popularity and throw out a lackluster copycat and trick Nana Karen into thinking she just downloaded the hot new game she saw on her granddaughter's Facebook feed. The core gamer laughs at mobile gaming. They don't take it seriously because of shit like this. All they see is god-awful properties and none of the quality that's on there, like Super Stickman Golf or Super Hexagon. Christ, the best developer of 2013, Samogo, live on the fucking App Store. They produce sheer brilliance in Yearwalk and Device 6 in the last 12 months alone. And those two games right there can stand up to any motherfucking game you have on your brand new PlayStation 4 or your brand new Xbox One and come out on top. The success of Nguyen is almost unheard of in the video game space. The man became an international hit in an incredibly short space of time. Now, the Endless Runner wasn't his idea, but he took the concept and added his own little twist on it. It's much easier for developers to get their work out there with the advent of digital distribution, but sometimes that results in oversaturation and really bad, shameless clones being pushed to the top of the most downloaded lists. Without any sort of policing, we're doomed to see the likes of Swing Pigeon or Flappy Dog, that's dog spelled with an E, by the way, for the rest of eternity. And now it's time for my favourite part of the show, where you get to voice your opinion on what I said last week. And what I said last week was that there was no Vita love at the Gamescom and we needed exclusives and we just weren't getting them. Now, I put out a call to arms and thank the Lord Jeebus Christ, you answered that call. So thank you very much, first of all, for that. I actually don't think I'm going to get to all of your comments, but please do just comment anyway. Just like, don't let that deter you, please, Mother of Christ. Comment again on this week's show. Maybe you'll be mentioned on next week's show. So yeah, now let's turn on my 2120 vision and have a look at what you had to say. Starting off with Stephen Pierre Louis. Fucking very fancy name, Stephen. Stephen says, Sony as a company seems to have gotten as close to a fuck you to customers as you kind of get in the PR world. The good news is that us Vita owners are a really small group that can be ignored. I play on Vita more than 3DS, much more lately, but I also happen to really love the weird Japanese games on the system. Companies like Nisa, I think it's Nisa, Atlas, Exceed and Axis are carrying the system. Honourable mention to Tecmo Koei and Namco as well for some really good support lately. Sony itself has pretty much given up. It kind of pisses me off. And Steve, that is a valid point. Regular viewer of the show, Makoto03, also said something similar. Yeah, there are, okay, I will give you that. Like, there are quite a decent number of Japanese games that I probably overlooked last week because my interest in them isn't that great, and that was I just overlooked them, which is wrong of me. But there are, in terms of Japanese kind of exclusives and stuff, there are a kind of a smattering. Now, but then you look at something like Persona 4 is a PS2 game. I know, you're screaming at me, it's the best game of all time, fair enough, but it's still a PS2 game. And Danganronpa, blah blah, that was a PSP game. But yeah, there are other exclusives out there, and that's good. But they do need to cater towards maybe some of their other audiences, or like just that have the Vita also. Now, another person that commented on last week's show was Lbike 007. Lbike 007. I don't know, maybe it's something that James Bond used when the Aston Martin was in the garage. So Lbike 007, should put that in the outtakes, but fuck it, we're going on. Said, finished Child of Light on Vita. Playing some other titles on it as well, but I only bought mine recently. I have to say, when I check GameSpot for new reviews, I do get kind of pissed, as all I'll see is indie games being released. I won't say I regret buying it, as it's a great handheld to have, and it already has some great games on it. Yep, I'm a JRPG fan, lol. More JRPG love. But in my opinion, the future indeed doesn't look too bright. Frowny emoticon. P.S. I bought Final Fantasy VII on PS Store years back for my PS3, so awesome to have it on the Vita. Recommend it. No, Mr. Bike, Mr. Bond, Mr. 007, whatever you like to be called. Child of Light, PS4, PS3 game. Final Fantasy VII, a fucking PlayStation game. I don't know. Like, okay, if you're a JRPG fan, fair enough. GameSpot. There are other very good video game, like a GameSpot, excellent website, terrific, very good. Always come to God as a Geek as well. Have a look at our reviews. And finally, our last comment comes from another regular viewer. Thank you very much. 123 Ali D. And Mr. D says, I'm sure it'll be glowing, because normally he really enjoys my work. I always thought Debatable was the wrong name for the show because I never felt they've actually been debatable. I thought you've been spot on every time, Colm. Flawless. Thank you very much, 123 LED, and that's the end of the show. Until now. You think the Vita is dying because of a lack of exclusives. You're looking at it the wrong way. Why does the Vita need exclusives? What's so great about exclusives? The rules for handheld consoles are different. The Game Boy was great because you could play Mario at your grand's. You could almost have it called a peripheral. I do see the Vita as a peripheral, but that's not a bad thing. The 3DS has had to go with exclusives because it hasn't really got a choice. It doesn't really have a console to buddy up with. The Vita is chilling out with the PS3 and the PS4. It's a handheld. It's for playing your games when you can't get to your TV. The fantastic exclusives should be gems, not the norm. As connectivity becomes more important, the Vita should do well. Now, Mr. D. First of all, that's brilliant. I want to hear that. I want people to call me out. So, in all seriousness, thank you very much. The Vita came out prior to the PS4. And it was kind of the sister handheld to the PlayStation 3 when it first came out, and was so for a solid, you're talking February 2012, so you're talking a year, about 18 months until the PS4 came out. And there was remote play functionality on it, but it was a fucking bucket of shit, and it rarely worked. So in those 18 months, you're looking like there's no connectivity. It wasn't it couldn't buddy up with the PS3, basically. No, that was my argument. That's what they're trying to sell it as, a kind of a peripheral for the PlayStation 4. If you're fine with that, fair enough. Me, I'm not, because I think it's quite an expensive controller, because that's what it basically comes at that point. You know, like you say, the 3DS has nothing to buddy up with, but it does. The Wii U is Nintendo's home console. People may cut the fucking living shit out of it all they want, but I mean, and I hold my hand up, I've done so on many occasions, but you do have great games there as well, Mario Kart and whoa, blanking, Super Mario 3D World and whatnot. There's a smattering of good games there. So if you want to talk about buddying up, like the 3DS could buddy up with that in some form or fashion, if maybe it had the technology. Now the PS Vita does have that, and yeah, as I said, if you want that type of connectivity, use it as a peripheral, fair enough, I suppose. It's just, I do want those exclusives. Like you mentioned, even the Game Boy. Well, yeah, for playing at your grand's. The Game Boy didn't connect to anything. You know, you had exclusives on the Game Boy also that you couldn't get anywhere else, and that's sold by the bucket load. Look, if you're fine with it being a peripheral, cool. It's just, personally, I want games on the Vita that I cannot play anywhere else. Because otherwise, I don't think I'm going to play them on the Vita. I'll probably just play them on the PS4 or whatnot. But thank you very much to everyone who commented on last week's show. Please do comment on this week's show. Tell me why I am so very wrong about the App Store and cloning and Swing Copter and Flappy Bird and ridiculous fishing and Yearwalk and Device 6 and all that. Please do. Just leave a comment under this here video on YouTube or on the article itself on godisgeek.com, or you can just tweet me. Because everything I said on this show and past shows and future shows, well look, it's just my opinion and my opinion alone. And as always, it's debatable.